Hi, Yancey Strickler. Thanks for coming to Wired.
Yeah, thank you.
Yancey, first question is really it's about trust. Do you think that crowdfunding sites have had a few challenges over the last few years, a few high-profile cases in the press? I'm thinking about Zeno and some other companies, which has led to a little bit of skepticism in the tech press when dealing with companies. So, do you think that there's a trust problem there?
Yeah, I think that people rightly ask a lot of questions when looking at projects because you're seeing someone at the very early stages of an idea. So I think an implicit question that every backer, the press, the public is asking is both, is this idea cool, is this feasible, and can these people pull it off? I think that backers have done a tremendous job of picking the right projects to support. So if you think about the overall Kickstarter system, there's about 5,000 projects live at any given time. Historically, 40% of those projects raise the funding they need to go forward, and then 91% of those projects successfully accomplish what they set out to do. So we did a big study with Wharton, the University of Pennsylvania, a couple of years ago that found that 9% of projects failed to fulfill what they said they were going to do. Most of the case, I think it's an instance of maybe a creator being excited about an idea when they first had it, but the reality of making it happen is either harder or just less interesting than maybe they initially thought. But the number of cases where there's actual malfeasance or misbehavior on the part of the creators, I think, is quite small. I see creators fulfilling their obligations, their backers, taking those things very seriously. But certainly this has led to people, when they look at a project, to sort of ask a question of, is this legit or not? And I think that's the right question to ask. I mean, I don't see any world in which there can be a 100% success rate of fulfillment on Kickstarter. You know, the only sort of system that would produce that sort of success rate would be even more conservative than banks are. So inherent in this platform is the idea that we're opening up, opening up the creative process to a wider group of people. A normal person could both share an idea and be a part of an idea. But it also does mean that there is some risk that something may not work out as planned. And this is something that we embrace, we're open about. From the very beginning, our site advised people to use their internet street smarts when using Kickstarter. So we want people to trust in the vision of a creator, get excited about what they want to do, especially if it's someone that who they liked their last record. But if it's someone that you don't know, if it's someone beyond your social circle, if it's someone promising to do something truly fantastic, then certainly we advise people to ask more questions, to dig in, to look into things.
If you're not a store, are you a gambling company?
A gambling company?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
That's like,
yeah.
But there is an extent to which Kickstarters are often a gamble.
Sure. I mean, and maybe the same way that leaving your house every day is, is a gamble. You may not know what's going to happen, but I think we're more something new than we are an analog to something in the past. I mean, our history is in, our roots are in patronage, in the notion of communal funding of things people wanted to see happen. And we work quite well at doing that. It definitely gets more complicated if someone's manufacturing a physical good and you're dependent on many different suppliers. And there are so many things that are out of the hands of the creator and certainly out of the hands of the backer. And so those are the more complicated projects. Interestingly, those have lower failure rates than some of the other categories do. So I think those entrepreneurs take those things very seriously. But yeah, I mean, this is not something to be afraid of. I understand the frustration of a backer who put in 100 quid into something and then it doesn't go anywhere. Of course, they're furious and frustrated, and we hear from those people. And we talk to them, and often you'll hear, like, I understand that it's not a store, I get all those things, but like, this person seems like they are mistreating us, and so what are you going to do about that? So if we ever see a creator not fulfill their obligations, it's not publicly shared, but they are prohibited from launching projects again with us. So we do look at past fulfillment rates with creators coming back again. So we try to stop bad actors from entering the platform again, should that happen. But yeah, I mean, certainly there's frustration, and we live in an era of high consumer expectations, and we're trying to say this is not exactly a consumer experience. This is something Traditionally there is, commerce, there is investment, and there's charity are the three main ways that money changes hands. Kickstarter is kind of a fourth category that has similarities to all the others. It's like commerce in that there is a reward that you get in return. It's like investment in that the money is put in ahead of time. And it's like charity in that people are spending money just because wouldn't it be great if that happened? But there's a special blend of these things that, our 8th birthday is happening right now, and so we hope that, in the next 8 years, this will be even more and more established as something that people really understand on their own.
When Kickstarter, on the 10% that do fail, Kickstarter takes 5% flat rate of any amount of money that's raised. When projects fail, you still keep that 5%.
We do.
Is that something that you ever struggle with?
Yeah, we think about it. Certainly think about what are ways that money could help the overall community. We spend more than our fee from failed projects on an integrity and trust and safety team. More than 10% of our staff works on keeping the system secure. But yeah, it's certainly something that we think about, and I'm not sure exactly what the answer is, but yeah, those are. Every time there's a failure, and again, 1 out of 10 that happens, we feel very frustrated on behalf of backers. We will often look back at the project as it was originally presented and say, is there something here that we should have seen that we didn't? And in the case of one like the Xanodrone, the most high-profile failure to date, we were really dissatisfied with the level of transparency those creators provide. So we hired an investigative journalist to dig into whatever they wanted, and they had time with me and everyone internally. We paid them and said, you publish whatever you want, we will loudly pronounce it. And yeah, we ended up sharing on social media a story that talks about a Kickstarter project that raised millions and gave people nothing. But we thought in that there's lessons for other creators to learn, and it's just us embracing the fact that this does happen. It's not what anyone wants to have happen, but if we were trying to create a system in which failure was impossible, it would destroy our mission and defeat the entire purpose of the site. Not even a bank can guarantee 100% success, and those are extremely conservative institutions.
So maybe you could talk about some of the places, some of the industries where you've been surprised at how well they've done, and you've seen those kind of creative flourishings on the platform where maybe you didn't expect.
Yeah, the most fervent community we have on the platform is around tabletop gaming. It's at least $300 million to tabletop game creators, and most of that's been in the past 4 years. It's incredible, and this is a perfect example of how Kickstarter and this model is so powerful, because these are all games that, for traditional board game publishers, none of these games are big enough to be worth putting in money. They're looking for it needs to be at least 100,000 units or something to be worth manufacturing. But here we've proven that doing 5, 10, 20,000 runs of things, you're able to create a huge diversity of projects. You're giving just an everyday person the opportunity to put an idea, a game out in the world. And that all started with Cards Against Humanity, which is routinely the #1 selling game on Amazon, which started as a $10,000 Kickstarter project. So the world of games, tabletop and video games, completely changed post-Kickstarter. It's the same in the world of hardware. Before Kickstarter, hardware was you'd have to make at least hundreds of thousands of something for it to be worthwhile, unless it's a very high-end item. Kickstarter created a market for 5,000 of something, 1,000 of something, 10,000 of something, and then Shenzhen and other factories have evolved to match that, where the entire supply chain of how a physical good is produced is changed as a result of Kickstarter and what it is that we've driven. So all this indie hardware, more niche hardware, these are things that we're a strong part of the technology community in the 70s and 80s, and began to sort of die off, and they've been able to come back in a real way through Kickstarter. The film industry, huge impact there. 10% of Sundance the past 7 years has been Kickstarter funded. Oscar-nominated movies 8 years in a row, or 7 years in a row. In each category, there's like a different way that we've had an impact, and that basically it's just been a community has found, oh, this solves this need that all the existing players weren't even aware of. Because the existing players are businesses that are looking to maximize their value, that are looking to make as much money as possible. And we are mission-oriented. We are just looking to get as many ideas into the world as possible. And so it's just a much greater world of possibility through Kickstarter. And it's one that is a much fairer set of terms for creators. You know, you get complete ownership of your work, total creative control of what it is you want to make. You get to take a risk on an idea that you wouldn't have otherwise, and you get to create with a community right there with you. And those are things that you cannot get from anyone else. And you get all that for the price of 5% of what you raised and total control of what you want afterwards.
I mean, you mentioned there the being transparent about your tax rates. What is it about that structure or you as a company, and what do you think it is that needs to happen for more other companies to take this approach?
I don't know, the many others will, you know, because it impacts profitability, right? You know, to make that sort of decision.
But do you think, therefore, that big tech companies seeing flotation as the end goal and having a big return for investors is holding this back?
What I think being a public benefit corporation could do, or that movement can do, ever since 1970, Milton Friedman wrote New York Times Magazine piece about the only job of companies to maximize shareholder value. That has become the mantra in the US, and I think elsewhere, but especially in the US. And that has come at the cost of the rest of society. So that's not a decision that exists in a vacuum. That is a decision that impacts everything else. And so for us, what was so exciting about becoming a public benefit corporation is that there is a legal mandate that not only do you produce value for shareholders, but you place equal weight on producing value and public good for your community. And not just your customers, but like where you are. And I mean, that fits squarely within our worldview, and we just think is incredibly important, because companies will continue to be the dominant organization of human beings, certainly for this century, it seems like, and maybe even more so than government. So what does it mean if we say to them that they have no obligation to anyone else other than make themselves as much money as possible? Then you're just treating the world as a portfolio to rape and pillage. But the world is also where we live. These are not separate things. For us, the most important thing is that we are directly aligned with the needs of the creative community. Those are the people we're thinking about. And so, we are trying to, as I said before, we want Kickstarter to be one of the most trusted organizations in the world by every artist and creative person. We want them to understand the depth and truth of our commitment, the enormous good that comes out of this platform having success, trying to imagine what the world is like if everyone is creating in this kind of way. What does that look like? I think that is incredibly exciting and could be a real creative golden age for people. So there are some big moves for us this year, and the second half of the year will be some of the biggest things we've ever done. But every single one of those, the goal will be to better align Kickstarter with the creative community.
Yancey Strickler, thank you so much for joining Wired.
Yeah, cheers, thank you.